We knew what happened in the script. We knew that something came out of John Hurt's chest because his line was, "Oh my goo-ah."
Hollywood wanted Meryl Streep. The studio said no one would watch a woman fight monsters. Then Sigourney Weaver walked in and changed movie history forever. But after 4 films she walked away from the franchise that made her famous. Now at 75 she's revealing the disturbing truth: the failed clones, the FBI threats, and the dark secret that made her refuse millions to return. Sigourney Weaver was born on October 8, 1949 as Susan Alexandra Weaver. Her family was already famous. Her father, Pat Weaver, was a big name in television. He created The Today Show and The Tonight Show, which changed TV forever. Her mother, Elizabeth English, was an actress who starred in The 39 Steps 1935 but later gave up acting to raise her family. Sigourney also had famous relatives. Her uncle Doodles Weaver was a comedian and her godfather was Steve Allen, the first host of The Tonight Show. Even with all this, Sigourney didn't feel like she belonged. Her parents were busy with their careers and she often felt ignored. She once said she was like a little girl in a big house with no one to talk to. She wasn't the type to rely on her family's success. Instead of chasing acting, she went to Stanford University to study English literature. She didn't live a normal college life. She actually lived in a treehouse with her boyfriend, played the flute and dressed in elf costumes for fun. She did some acting in school plays like A Streetcar Named Desire, but she thought being an actress was silly. That changed when she traveled to Israel after college to work on a farm. She realized how much she missed storytelling, so she decided to apply to Yale School of Drama. Yale wasn't easy. She had classmates like Meryl Streep, who was always getting the best roles, while Sigourney got stuck playing old ladies, which was kind of insulting for someone in their early 20s. The professors didn't believe in her. One even told her, "You have no talent, you should leave." Instead of giving up, she became determined to prove them wrong. But before all that, something big happened. When she was 14, she changed her name. She found the name Sigourney in The Great Gatsby and thought it suited her better. She was already 5 feet 11 inches by 6th grade, and she felt like Susan didn't fit someone so tall. People made fun of her height, calling her the giant spider, but changing her name made her feel stronger. Later, that unique name helped her in Hollywood. Some casting directors thought Sigourney was a man's name and were surprised when she showed up. That actually helped her get noticed. At Yale, things started turning around when she met Christopher Durang, a fellow student who also felt like an outsider. They started working together on strange experimental plays. In one play, Titanic 1976, she played a woman who kept live animals inside her body. It was bizarre, but it showed that she could mix weirdness and emotion at the same time. Then they created Das Lusitania Songspiel, a wild play that mocked war and capitalism. Sigourney played a sex worker smashing champagne bottles while singing about money. Critics thought it was insane, but it got the attention of Warren Beatty, who called it punk theater. When she had to do her final performance at Yale, instead of a serious monologue, she did a piece about a woman seducing a refrigerator. The professors failed her, but Durang secretly gave the script to some agents, and that led to her first off-Broadway role. Before Alien, she was part of New York's weird theater scene. She and Durang kept working together, pushing the limits of what people expected from plays. In Das Lusitania Songspiel, they added a hedgehog puppet that symbolized capitalism, a version of Romeo and Juliet where the lovers shouted Marxist slogans, and a scene where Sigourney dressed as the Titanic and sank while singing. Most critics hated it, but it became a cult hit. That's when Mike Nichols, a famous director, saw her and later cast her in a Broadway play. Her first film role wasn't anything special. She was in Annie Hall 1977 for 6 seconds. She had no lines and was just standing in a trench coat next to Woody Allen and Diane Keaton. She later joked, "I made $50 and spent it on a sandwich." It was embarrassing, but it ended up helping her. The casting director, Juliet Taylor, remembered her and later suggested her for Alien. And because no one expected the girl from Annie Hall to fight a monster, it made her performance in Alien even more surprising. Later, fans started playing a game called Where's Sigourney, trying to spot her in Annie Hall. It was kind of funny. Her first big moment in movies was just standing there in the background, but soon she wouldn't be in the background anymore. She was about to become one of the biggest stars in science fiction history. Sigourney Weaver's role in Alien changed sci-fi forever, but it almost didn't happen. The original script in 1976 didn't specify the characters' genders, but early drafts used male pronouns. No one expected the lead to be a woman. When director Ridley Scott and 20th Century Fox president Alan Ladd Jr. decided to make Ripley female, it was a huge risk. At just 29, Weaver was an unknown actress. She wasn't even the first choice. Meryl Streep and Glenn Close were considered, but Weaver got the role. She played Ripley in a way no one had seen before. She wasn't weak, she wasn't waiting to be saved, she was smart, tough, and knew how to survive. But Hollywood didn't respect that. She was only paid $35,000 while co-star John Hurt made $250,000. Fox didn't even want her at first. They thought a female action hero wouldn't work. Scott had to prove them wrong. He made her train with ex-Marines so she looked strong and confident handling machinery. The risk paid off. Audiences were shocked when the male captain played by Tom Skerritt died first. Ripley wasn't just a side character, she was the last one standing. Sigourney Weaver's Oscar nomination for Aliens in 1987 was something no one expected. Back then Hollywood didn't take sci-fi seriously. The Academy mostly gave awards to emotional dramas or romance films, not action-packed movies with aliens and explosions. But Weaver's performance as Ellen Ripley was too powerful to ignore. She wasn't like the other nominees that year who played women dealing with heartbreak or personal struggles. Ripley was different. She was strong, smart, and fearless. She led soldiers into battle, fought off terrifying creatures, and protected a little girl. She showed strength and emotion at the same time, something rare in action movies. But in the end Weaver didn't win the Oscar. It went to Marlee Matlin for Children of a Lesser God, who made history as the first deaf actor to win. Many believed Weaver had been robbed because the Academy still didn't respect science fiction, but her nomination alone changed things. Years later, when Sandra Bullock won an Oscar for Gravity, people saw it as proof that Weaver had helped open the door for women in action films. 2 years later in 1989 Weaver did something no one had ever done before. She won 2 Golden Globes in one night, one for Gorillas in the Mist where she played real-life scientist Diane F.Y., and one for Working Girl where she played a ruthless boss. No actor had ever won 2 acting awards in the same night before, and no one has done it since. These 2 roles showed just how talented she was. In Gorillas in the Mist she completely transformed into F.Y., a woman who dedicated her life to protecting gorillas. Weaver spent months studying F.Y.'s behavior, even living among real gorillas. The experience was tough. She got sick with Denter while filming in Rwanda and refused to use a stunt double for dangerous scenes. In Working Girl she played the complete opposite, a manipulative arrogant executive who steals credit from her assistant. She made the character so believable that people in Hollywood said she must have been channeling every horrible boss they had ever met. Winning those 2 awards in one night proved she could do anything, but Weaver just laughed about it later saying, "I think the voters got confused and checked my name twice." Even after all this success she didn't want to get stuck playing the same kind of role over and over. After Aliens Hollywood kept offering her tough action roles, but she turned them down. She didn't want to be typecast. She even refused Total Recall and The Silence of the Lambs, both of which became massive hits. Instead she chose movies that challenged her in different ways. She played a quiet unhappy housewife in The Ice Storm, which won her a BAFTA. She took on a dark emotional role in Death and the Maiden, playing a woman confronting her former torturer. The role was so intense that the director called it emotional surgery. And even when she wasn't on screen she still made an impact. She lent her voice to Wall-E, proving she could captivate audiences without even being seen. But sci-fi always pulled her back. She returned for Alien 3, but only on her terms. She demanded that Ripley's story be meaningful, not just another sequel with mindless action. She wanted her character's death to have purpose. Still, Sigourney Weaver's time on Alien 3 was nothing but a nightmare. Sigourney Weaver's time on Alien 3 was nothing but a nightmare. The original idea for the movie was completely different from what ended up on screen. At first the story took place on a wooden monastery planet where a group of monks lived in isolation. They believed Ripley was some kind of divine test, and when the xenomorph appeared they thought it was their punishment for sin. This version, written by Vincent Ward, was green-lit by Fox in 1990. It was filled with eerie religious imagery, hand-carved wooden corridors, candlelit rituals, a slow-burning horror that mixed faith with fear. But just 3 weeks before filming, the studio scrapped the entire thing. The script was thrown out, the sets were halfway built, but now the movie had no story. Fox panicked because test audiences hated the idea that Newt, the little girl from Aliens, was killed off screen, so at the last minute they switched everything to a prison planet setting instead. This wasted millions of dollars and the whole production became a mess. Weaver later said this was the moment when Hollywood stopped taking risks and started making movies just to avoid financial losses. To direct this chaos, Fox hired David Fincher. He was only 28 years old and had never made a feature film before, just music videos. And from the start the studio controlled everything he did. Every morning he had to fight with executives just to shoot the scenes his way. He was working with a script that had been ripped apart and rewritten over and over. Earlier drafts included one from cyberpunk writer William Gibson which focused on Cold War bioweapons, and another from Near Dark's Eric Red which was more horror-focused. In the end none of that remained. The movie borrowed pieces from a Prison Break draft written by Walter Hill, but the spiritual eerie elements of Ward's Monastery script were completely gone. Fincher's dark, unsettling style was constantly rejected by the studio. He wanted the opening credits to show Newt's autopsy, making Ripley's grief feel real and painful, but Fox cut it saying it was too depressing. On set some crew members mocked him and one producer even told him, "You could piss against a wall for 2 hours and call it Alien 3, it'll still make $30 million. Fincher was so frustrated that after the movie he left Hollywood for a while. When he came back he refused to let studios control his films, which is why movies like Seven happen his way, on his terms. Weaver had her own battles. Ripley was completely transformed in Alien 3. She had a shaved head, wore plain prison clothes, and looked worn down from radiation exposure. To create this look, makeup artists used prosthetic glue on her scalp, but it caused severe allergic reactions. She broke out in painful rashes and they had to switch to medical-grade glue, which still delayed filming. Even shaving her head became a fight. Fincher wanted it real, but Fox wanted a wig because they thought audiences wouldn't find her attractive enough. Weaver refused. She later said Ripley wasn't there to be desirable, she was there to survive. Fox didn't like this. In retaliation they removed her co-producer credit from early trailers and even promoted the movie with the tagline "The ___ is back." Weaver was furious, calling it insulting and cheap. She had pushed hard to have a say in the movie. After Aliens she was powerful enough to demand script approval. When the studio killed off Newt and Hicks she insisted that Ripley had to die too, otherwise it would feel pointless. But the endless rewrites drained her. She later admitted the whole thing made her feel exhausted and defeated. This experience also showed her how Hollywood treated women. Male executives called her hysterical for having creative input. Crew members didn't like taking orders from a woman. She even thought about quitting acting because of it. But despite everything she still defended Fincher. She believed the movie was buried under studio interference, but she saw the good in what Fincher was trying to do. Fincher himself wanted nothing to do with the movie after it came out. He called it a nightmare and said no one hates it more than me. When Fox released a longer cut of the film in 2003, restoring 30 minutes of deleted footage, he refused to be involved. The scene he hated most was Ripley's death. Originally she was supposed to sacrifice herself by jumping into molten lead, but at the last second Fox forced a change, making the xenomorph burst from her chest as she fell. Fincher thought it was stupid and unnecessary, just a way to copy Terminator 2's famous ending. Weaver, on the other hand, still has mixed feelings. She knows the movie is flawed, but she also thinks it was bold. She respects Fincher for not making it safe. Killing Newt was a huge risk, but she felt it made Ripley's grief more real. Over time the film has gained a cult following. Some fans now appreciate its themes of corporate exploitation and bodily autonomy. Weaver believes it deserved better than the hate it got. Sigourney Weaver returned in Alien Resurrection 1997, but this time she wasn't the same Ripley. She played a clone, Ripley 8, who wasn't fully human anymore. Scientists had mixed her DNA with the xenomorphs, giving her strange powers. She was Avatar, The Way of Water. No AI. No tricks. Just her acting. James Cameron wanted her to move like a real teenager. She ran, climbed, and even made herself act awkward to prepare. She read her old teenage diaries and worked with coaches to bring back that energy. For 13 years no one knew who Kiri's father was. Some thought he was a human, others thought it was a Gnostics warrior. Some even believed Pandora's goddess Aa played a part. Weaver added her own touch. She made up Kiri's connection with nature. One scene where Kiri bonds with underwater creatures wasn't in the script, but Cameron loved it. At first people laughed at the idea of a 61-year-old playing a teen, but she proved them wrong. The visual effects team used massive amounts of data to make her look younger, but everything else was real. Then she became a villain in The Defenders, but not a normal one. Alexandra Reed wasn't trying to rule the world. She was just trying to survive. She had lived 500 years by stealing organs. Weaver told the writers to make her different. Instead of magic she wanted Alexandra to be smart and powerful in a quiet way. Her most chilling scene? She poisoned someone's tea and it felt like something out of Shakespeare. Marvel didn't want her to die so soon in the show, but she insisted. Later leaked emails showed Kevin Feige wished he had used her in Eternals. In 2013 she returned to Broadway after 20 years. She played a washed-up actress in Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike. The role was chaotic. One night she tripped over a rug so hard she broke David Hyde Pierce's rib. She did all her own stunts even when her costumes kept messing up. One time she got stuck in a wig net on stage. People loved how wild she was. Once she went off script for 7 minutes ranting about 1980s soap operas. The playwright added it to the show. The budget almost collapsed because she demanded real vodka on stage. Her craziest moment? She secretly performed a matinee while sick with COVID-19. Later she said she just channeled Masha's madness and kept going. Galaxy Quest let Weaver make fun of her sci-fi legacy. She played Gwen DeMarco, a character who mocked the ridiculous roles women got in space movies. One scene where Gwen complains about the ship's random death traps was Weaver's idea. She got the idea after thinking about all the dumb plot holes in Alien 3. She also improvised a line when running from a rock monster, but it almost got the movie in her rating. Behind the scenes the screenwriter fed her insults through an earpiece to make her as angry as Ripley. Her costume became a joke. She kept accidentally ripping her sleeves to mock how impractical sci-fi outfits were. The weirdest part? The "By Grabthar's Hammer" chant came from an old SNL sketch about one of Weaver's failed Broadway plays. In Ghostbusters: Afterlife, Weaver's 37-second cameo was more important than people realized. Her scene with Bill Murray wasn't just for fun. It hinted that Dana Barrett was secretly funding the Ghostbusters' return. Cut dialogue even revealed she helped rebuild Phoebe's proton pack. During filming she changed a line to hint that Dana might have psychic powers. She refused aging makeup, saying Dana survived Gozer, she's earned her wrinkles. The original plan? She was supposed to fight Zol, but Weaver refused, saying Dana should be the one person who stays calm in all the chaos. Sigourney Weaver and Jim Simpson have been married for 40 years, which is rare in Hollywood. They met in 1983 at a theater festival where he was bartending. She was dating someone else at the time, but later invited him to a party. He stayed to help clean up, and that small moment led to their first date. 3 months later, on October 1, 1984, they got married. She called it a leap of faith. They had a daughter, Charlotte, in 1990. Charlotte, or Char, is non-binary and works as a professor at Columbia University focusing on AI and digital storytelling. Weaver struggled with balancing motherhood and her career. While filming Avatar, Char was applying to colleges, and she said it almost killed her. Despite being a huge star, she chose a quiet life in New York, spending time hiking and staying away from Hollywood drama. Weaver faced struggles early in her career. At 6 feet tall, she was often rejected for roles because she was taller than male actors. She even joked about painting shoes on her feet to look shorter. Her daughter didn't care much about her fame either. When someone mentioned Alien, Char brushed it off, saying, "That goes in the little box of things I don't need to know." Weaver has always spoken up about issues she cares about. She works with the American Heart Association to raise awareness about heart disease, reminding women it kills more people than all cancers combined. She also supports abortion rights. In Call Jane 2022, she played a woman in an underground abortion network and said the film's message is more important than ever. She has also spent over 30 years fighting for gorilla conservation. After starring in Gorillas in the Mist 1988, she leads the DNFY Gorilla Fund and has won awards for her work. She has taken bold stands even when unpopular. In 2025, climate activists interrupted her play The Tempest. The audience booed them, but Weaver supported them, saying their message fit the play's theme. Weaver hasn't made a big public fight about her own pay, but she helped pave the way for women in action movies. Her role as Ripley in Alien proved that women could lead big-budget films. Viola Davis once pointed out that white actresses like Weaver earn far more than black actresses, saying, "I get a tenth of what they do." Weaver was only paid $330,000 for Alien, but later in her career, especially with Avatar, she earned much more. She has also supported other women in Hollywood, backing projects like Prayers for Bobby, which focused on LGBTQ+ issues, and helping actresses like Elizabeth Banks in Call Jane. Outside of Hollywood, Weaver has been a UN Goodwill Ambassador for years, speaking out on climate change, deforestation, and plastic pollution. She also helps fight addiction stigma and has worked for refugee rights. During COVID-19, she even turned her New York apartment into a meeting space for climate activists like Greta Thunberg. In 2015, she risked arrest while protesting the Keystone XL pipeline, saying, "Silence is complicity." For Weaver, activism isn't just talk, it's part of who she is.